Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We are out on the launch pad with our V-SEL, the V-SEL. This is our Venus lander mission. We have warped forward, 100 and some odd days to get to the window, and now we're just waiting for our relative inclination with the moon to be somewhat appropriate so that we can make our launch to orbit and then get this whole lander mission thing underway. I'm going to use a little bit of time warp. It doesn't seem to be ticking down all that fast, so hopefully I won't overdo it. Alright. 0.28 I think is relatively within tolerance. SAS on, throttle set to full, ignition. Candles lit, let's let them fly. This is probably the heaviest payload we've ever asked an RA-9 to put into orbit. It is certainly a little struggling with the weight right there off launch, but hopefully everything here will go nice and smooth, and I will see all of you in orbit. Okay, that went surprisingly well. Both of our RL-10s fired up and stayed lit. We're on orbit, 187 by 179 kilometers. Not bad. I would like to check our power draw. We are charging. Perfect. Alright, and just make sure everything that needs to be booted gets booted. We also have a small contract to radio science from orbit of Earth. We're going to take care of that very quickly. Yeah, no points, but we'll get a contract and we'll get paid about 10 grand for it. Always a good thing. So we just need to set up our comms, which means giving this guy a target but not activating it. Of course that target will be Earth. We don't really need to activate the other antenna on the side of this lander, but we would like to give it a target, namely Earth. Good enough there. We'll go ahead and fire up our other short range for no real reason whatsoever. And just to make sure I don't forget about it later, we'll fire up this short range to make sure that it has comms with the orbiter once it detaches. I have a real bad habit of forgetting to do that stuff sometimes. Also, I have added on both a high-res and a low-res scanner for when we are in orbit of Venus, because I got contracts to do both of those, and they're pretty lucrative. So, what contract did we fulfill? It's data from around Earth. Oh yes, and also, if you've noticed this big jump in our fundage here, is because Yegor has been in orbit of the moon, or has been on his mission, rather, for more than 60 days. So we got the 60 days in crewed orbit contract that paid us like 1.2 million. It was pretty awesome. Alright, let's bring out our maneuver planner and mess with nodes. Alright, perfect. That puts us on a polar trajectory, which is exactly what we need for our mapping. Alright, we have 44 minutes until our first burn, so we should probably start pointing close to it. We'll just kick this thing into a roll and let it do its thing with SAS off. So I'm going to be using that RCS fuel to help. That's a 3,400 meter per second burn. Yeah, 2,500 in this stage. I think we've probably got close to 3,800 in this stage, but we do have that mid-course inclination change to handle also. That I was not anticipating something quite that severe, but here's hoping it's not more than 1 kilometer per second. That may have to change our approach tactics in that we're going to be using this heat shield more than once. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Alright. Start to slow it down. Not quite that much. Good job, RCS thrusters. You have impressed me. Alright, and we'll just go ahead and go to the timey warps and bring ourselves around to the... Oh god, I'm going to miss the node. Alright. It says the burn takes 9 minutes. We should probably anticipate it taking a little longer than that, seeing as how we'll have to have a staging event in the middle of it. So we'll probably start right around, let's say the 7-minute mark. Sounds about right to me. Alright. Let's go ahead and ullage these engines. Risky, stable ignition. Oh, thank God they both lit. Oy vey. That's a pretty good shot, if I do say so myself. That might be our winner today. We shall see. If the spacecraft looks better separated, then we'll use something from that instead. Alright, laying on the H key, enjoying a long burn. At least you've got something pretty to look at. I guess I don't need that up or that up anymore. So, away we go. Alright, we have RL10 flame out. We can kill the throttle for a second. Unlock our primaries here and decouple. Let's let the fuel in our AJ10 get settled and ignition. Excellent. I do not have the satellite tanks unlocked, but what we do have unlocked should be enough to complete this burn. And that's good. That's all we'll really need them for. Alright, 0.9 meters per second off. And growing because I keep using the thrusters. Let's see if we can't just work this down just a bit. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. Although I'm sure we're off by quite a bit. Alright. Let's kill that node and 1,850 meters per second. And at that point it doesn't even get us an encounter. So, kill it. Did it unselect my target? Yep. So I have to plot this again. Sorry. Speed this up if I can. Alright. That gets us our desired result. That node is in 60 days and 3 hours, so we will have to come back to it. We will probably be doing a entire episode dedicated to adjusting orbits. How fun. Alright, what's our total delta V? 2428. And that maneuver is going to be 2279. So, we're going to have to adjust our flight plan to include an aero capture, obviously, instead of just an aero brake. Because we're not going to have any delta V, really. I mean, a couple hundred meters per second, but we're going to need that to alter our orbit. Because these two scanners have very different altitudes at which they function. This one's pretty low, 500 kilometers. That one's very high, like 8 million. So we're going to need some of that fuel to adjust between the orbits of these two. Not very Not very satisfying, I have to say. Ah, that has fuel for this engine. That's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Alright, that doesn't change the fact that we're going to have to brake in the atmosphere. Anyway, oh, that's quite pretty down there, I have to say. Is that the Philippines? Or New Zealand? That looks like it's Australia. Anyway, alright. Let's just admire that for a second. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow. We will probably be getting our Venus return project underway. Although, now that I know about this ridiculous plane change we have to do, I'm not so sure how successful it's going to be. So, anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for hanging out. I will see all of you tomorrow.